is there an inherent tension in trying to be relatable while also being a duchess?
No, I don't find, I'm just being myself. But then I also would say Netflix made a really compelling sell. We began our relationship with Netflix 5 years ago, purely as a production company with Art 12 Productions. And we've managed to have some wonderful shows and docuseries that we're really proud of. And then with the evolution of our partnership now is them doubling down in their support of As Ever.
Palace sources are whispering, and what they're revealing will leave you speechless. The Bloomberg interview that was supposed to cement Meghan Markle's transformation from failed royal to serious businesswoman has instead become the moment her entire post-royal fantasy came crashing down. Industry insiders aren't just disappointed. They're calling it the most catastrophic self-destruction they've ever witnessed on live television. What started as a carefully orchestrated PR campaign to rehabilitate her image turned into 90 minutes of devastating contradictions that exposed uncomfortable truths no amount of glossy Netflix production could cover up. Sources close to Bloomberg are now admitting they made a colossal mistake booking her, with one executive brutally stating that her presence—
Do you want to see it at Target or Williams-Sonoma or—
I think a key retail partner is going to be very valuable. The categories, it might not just be one. We might have exclusivity in certain ones that make sense for the consumable.
What happened during that Bloomberg interview wasn't just embarrassing, it was a complete demolition of everything Meghan Markle has tried to build since leaving the royal family. Royal analysts and media experts have identified 7 devastating contradictions that she delivered with such confidence. Viewers initially questioned their own sanity rather than her statements. The most jaw-dropping contradiction emerged when she painted herself as a vintage technology hermit who doesn't even have Siri activated on her phone. She claimed to be so disconnected from digital life that she'd only just discovered ChatGPT the week before the interview. But here's what makes this absolutely insane. This is the exact same woman who just launched a sophisticated direct-to-consumer lifestyle empire that requires complex digital marketing, algorithmic social media optimization, and real-time inventory management systems. You literally cannot run a modern e-commerce business while being technologically illiterate. The infrastructure needed for her As Ever brand requires customer databases, payment processing, SEO strategies, and digital customer service platforms that would make tech executives dizzy. Yet Meghan expects us to believe she's orchestrating this entire digital empire while writing letters with fountain pens and mailing them with stamps. The privacy contradiction reached peak absurdity when she simultaneously bragged about going out constantly in Montecito, describing regular date nights, girls' dinners, and community events, while complaining that grocery shopping had become impossible due to privacy concerns. The logical disconnect is so obvious, it's almost insulting. If you can handle public restaurants and social gatherings, why would walking through produce aisles suddenly require total anonymity? But the pantyhose lie was perhaps the most insulting to anyone with half a brain. She claimed wearing hosiery as part of royal protocol felt completely foreign and inauthentic, joking that she hadn't seen pantyhose since movies in the 1982nd. This from someone who spent 7 years as a professional actress on Suits, a high-end legal drama where costume departments would have absolutely required professional undergarments for every single scene. Her business success numbers ventured into pure fantasy territory. She described scaling from a few thousand units to needing purchase orders of millions in just months, representing growth that would put her jam company in the same league as major consumer brands with $100 million marketing budgets. Where's the cultural phenomenon that typically accompanies this kind of explosive success? Nowhere, because it doesn't exist. The final contradiction involved her media awareness. She spent considerable time explaining clickbait economics and SEO algorithms with the expertise of someone obsessively tracking every story about herself, while claiming she protects herself from negative coverage. You don't develop sophisticated understanding of media manipulation without consuming exactly the content you claim to avoid. But these contradictions were just the opening act of a much larger disaster. While Meghan confidently described her wonderful partnership with Netflix during the Bloomberg interview, executives at the streaming giant were finalizing announcements that would expose just how dramatically her star had fallen. The timing of this revelation makes the interview either a deliberate deception or proof of how completely disconnected she'd become from her own business reality. Just 48 hours after Bloomberg aired her confident statements about Netflix's creative support and financial backing, industry publications dropped the bombshell that would shatter her entire narrative. Her exclusive $100 million deal had been secretly downgraded to a standard first-look arrangement, the kind Netflix offers to much less prominent creators who failed to deliver on their promises. Palace sources reveal that Netflix executives had been growing increasingly frustrated with Arcueil Productions' underwhelming output for months. While Harry and Meghan generated initial curiosity due to royal drama, their subsequent projects failed spectacularly. With Love, Meghan managed only 5.3 million views despite massive promotional investment, ranking a humiliating 383rd on Netflix's global watch list. The financial implications are staggering. Instead of guaranteed payments and overhead coverage from their original exclusive arrangement, they're now operating under a structure where Netflix only pays if they actually approve specific projects. Industry insiders describe this as corporate speak for "we're done throwing money at your failures." What makes this betrayal even more devastating is that Meghan sat through that entire Bloomberg interview describing Netflix as her supportive partner, while executives had already decided to cut their losses. Sources close to the negotiations reveal that Netflix's patience had been exhausted by what they perceived as Meghan's inability to deliver content that justified their massive initial investment. The downgrade represents more than reduced income. It signals that one of the world's largest entertainment companies has publicly declared Meghan Markle a liability rather than an asset. When streaming platforms start restructuring deals to minimize risk, it sends unmistakable signals to the rest of the industry about your market value. But the Netflix humiliation was just the tip of an iceberg that's about to sink her entire empire. Behind the glossy Instagram posts and confident business interviews lies a financial catastrophe that sources describe as a textbook case of celebrity entrepreneurship gone horribly wrong. What they don't want you to know is that Meghan's lifestyle empire isn't just struggling, it's hemorrhaging money so badly that the entire operation is on the verge of complete collapse. Multiple sources familiar with As Ever operations reveal that the company has burned through millions in PR and marketing expenses without establishing the basic infrastructure needed to sustain a consumer products business. One former consultant who worked directly with the brand described the approach as prioritizing image over operations, resulting in a company that looks successful from the outside while crumbling behind the scenes. The most damaging revelation involves vendor relationships. Sources claim that suppliers and manufacturers haven't received payments in months, creating a situation where the brand's ability to fulfill future orders is seriously compromised. This explains why, despite Meghan's claims of million-unit demand, As Ever continues operating as limited drop, direct-to-consumer business rather than scaling into retail partnerships. Palace insiders reveal that the financial pressure has become so intense that Meghan has been approaching former royal contacts for investment opportunities and business connections requests that have been politely but firmly declined. The royal family's position is clear. They warned her about the challenges of monetizing royal status, and they're not interested in bailing out her failing ventures. Palace insiders reveal that the financial pressure has become so intense that Meghan has been approaching former royal contacts for investment opportunities and business connections requests that have been politely but firmly declined. The royal family's position is clear. They warned her about the challenges of monetizing royal status, and they're not interested in bailing out her failing ventures. The trademark disasters add another layer to this financial nightmare. After being forced to rebrand from American Riviera Orchard due to geographic trademark issues, As Ever immediately ran into new legal challenges. The USPTO partially rejected their trademark application due to conflicts with existing brands, specifically blocking them from apparel categories that represent massive revenue opportunities. Palace insiders reveal that the financial pressure has become so intense that Meghan has been approaching former royal contacts for investment opportunities and business connections requests that have been politely but firmly declined. The royal family's position is clear. They warned her about the challenges of monetizing royal status, and they're not interested in bailing out her failing ventures. The trademark disasters add another layer to this financial nightmare. After being forced to rebrand from American Riviera Orchard due to geographic trademark issues, As Ever immediately ran into new legal challenges. The USPTO partially rejected their trademark application due to conflicts with existing brands, specifically blocking them from apparel categories that represent massive revenue opportunities. Palace insiders reveal that the financial pressure has become so intense that Meghan has been approaching former royal contacts for investment opportunities and business connections requests that have been politely but firmly declined. The royal family's position is clear. They warned her about the challenges of monetizing royal status, and they're not interested in bailing out her failing ventures. The trademark disasters add another layer to this financial nightmare. After being forced to rebrand from American Riviera Orchard due to geographic trademark issues, As Ever immediately ran into new legal challenges. The USPTO partially rejected their trademark application due to conflicts with existing brands, specifically blocking them from apparel categories that represent massive revenue opportunities. The rebellion against Meghan Markle isn't coming from tabloids or royal critics, it's erupting from within the entertainment industry itself. And the whispered conversations in Hollywood boardrooms are painting a picture of someone whose brand has become radioactive. Bloomberg's regret over hosting her represents just the opening salvo of an industry-wide reassessment that's about to get brutal. Sources within Bloomberg describe the interview as a painful reminder of the difference between celebrity recognition and actual value. Producers expected sophisticated business insights from someone positioned as a serious entrepreneur. Instead, they received what multiple staffers characterized as 90 minutes of polished emptiness that left everyone questioning how the booking was approved. The regret extends far beyond one disappointing interview. Industry veterans are now using Meghan's Bloomberg appearance as a cautionary tale about the risks of celebrity bookings. When respected business platforms publicly distance themselves from high-profile guests, it creates ripple effects throughout the entire media ecosystem about who's worth the platform access. Palace sources reveal that the royal family has been quietly communicating their perspective to key media figures, providing context about Meghan's departure that contradicts her public victim narrative. This behind-the-scenes royal influence is reportedly affecting how industry leaders assess her credibility and long-term viability as a business partner. The most telling sign of industry sentiment is how Meghan's representatives are now struggling to secure meaningful media opportunities. Where she once commanded premium interview slots and major platform access, sources suggest her team is working significantly harder to book appearances that once would have been automatic. Streaming executives beyond Netflix are taking a wait-and-see approach to any Meghan collaborations. The combination of her track record, Bloomberg disappointment, and Netflix deal downgrade has created what insiders describe as a soft industry blacklist, where she's not explicitly banned, but faces dramatically higher barriers to securing quality projects. Production companies that once viewed Meghan as a potentially valuable partner are now questioning whether her ability to generate sustained audience interest justifies the controversy that inevitably follows her involvement. When celebrity partnerships become more about managing drama than creating content, the economic equation becomes unfavorable. But the industry revolt is happening against the backdrop of an even more significant shift. The victim narrative that protected Meghan Markle through years of controversy is finally cracking under the weight of public exhaustion, and even her most loyal supporters are beginning to question whether they've been played. What they don't want you to know is that focus groups and sentiment analysis reveal a fundamental shift from sympathy to skepticism that represents an existential threat to her entire brand strategy. The Bloomberg interview crystallized a growing public frustration with Meghan's approach to controversy management. Audiences have become sophisticated about identifying manufactured versus authentic narratives, and the contradictions between seeking privacy while aggressively pursuing media attention are becoming impossible to ignore. Palace sources suggest that the royal family's strategy of maintaining dignified silence while allowing Meghan's choices to speak for themselves has proven remarkably effective. Rather than engaging in public disputes that would provide additional narrative material, they've let professional consequences accumulate naturally. Social media sentiment reflects this evolution in public perception. Comments on Bloomberg coverage show decreasing emotional investment in her story, with audiences treating her appearances more as entertainment spectacle than compelling personal journey. The shift from passionate engagement to dismissive indifference represents a more serious threat than active hostility ever did. The real person plea that concluded her Bloomberg interview backfired by highlighting how calculated her public persona has become. When someone spends 90 minutes delivering polished talking points and then explicitly requests recognition of their humanity, it reinforces perceptions of strategic image management rather than authentic connection. Young audiences, particularly those who initially supported her modernization of royal traditions, are expressing fatigue with repeated cycles of grievance without corresponding accountability or growth. The demographic that was supposed to represent her core support base is increasingly viewing her as out of touch with genuine struggles. The comparison to other public figures has become particularly damaging. Catherine's approach of demonstrating values through actions rather than explaining them through interviews has created a stark contrast that makes Meghan's media strategy appear increasingly desperate and counterproductive. And this public sentiment shift is translating into career consequences that are about to become irreversible. The doors that once opened automatically for the Duchess of Sussex are now slamming shut with a finality that industry insiders describe as unprecedented for someone of her former stature. What started as selective hesitation has evolved into what sources call a coordinated industry withdrawal that's about to make her Hollywood aspirations impossible to achieve. Major talent agencies are quietly reassessing their relationships with Archwell Productions. Sources reveal that representatives who once competed for Meghan's business are now expressing concerns about whether association with her enhances or damages their other clients' prospects. When agents start viewing celebrity clients as potential liabilities, career death is usually imminent. Streaming platforms beyond Netflix are implementing what industry insiders describe as informal Meghan policies, internal guidelines that require multiple levels of approval before considering any projects involving her. The combination of her track record, Bloomberg disappointment, and Netflix deal downgrade has created bureaucratic barriers that didn't exist just months ago. Production companies that once viewed royal connection as a valuable asset are now calculating whether her involvement attracts or repels audiences. Focus group data reportedly shows that Meghan's presence can actually decrease viewer interest in projects, making her a measurable liability rather than asset for content creators. Palace sources reveal that even charitable organizations are approaching potential Meghan partnerships with increased caution. The concern isn't about her intentions, but about whether her involvement focuses attention on causes or redirects it toward her personal brand narrative. When celebrity participation potentially diminishes rather than amplifies important work, organizations naturally seek alternatives. The financial calculation has shifted dramatically across the industry. Celebrity partnerships are ultimately business decisions based on projected returns versus associated risks. As Meghan's ability to generate sustained audience interest decreases while her controversy factor remains high, the economic equation becomes increasingly unfavorable. Hollywood's interconnected social structure means professional disappointments spread quickly through informal networks. When executives share cautionary tales about working with certain personalities, it influences decisions across the entire entertainment ecosystem. Meghan's pattern of under-delivering while maintaining high demands has reportedly become common discussion in these private conversations. But the career consequences represent more than just professional setbacks. They signal a point of no return that industry veterans recognize as irreversible. The Bloomberg interview wasn't just another disappointing media appearance, it was the moment when Meghan Markle's entire post-royal strategy officially reached its expiration date, and industry analysts are treating this as a definitive case study in how royal status fails to translate into sustainable entertainment success. What makes this different from her previous setbacks is the cumulative effect of multiple professional failures converging simultaneously in ways that suggest fundamental problems with her entire approach. Palace sources who have observed this trajectory from the beginning aren't surprised by the outcome. They point out that Meghan's struggles serve as validation of their original concerns about monetizing royal status while simultaneously criticizing the institution. The contradiction was always going to create sustainability problems that no amount of PR management could resolve permanently. The royal family's long-term strategy of allowing natural consequences to unfold without interference has proven remarkably prescient. Rather than providing Meghan with additional grievance material through public disputes, they've watched as professional realities exposed the gaps between her aspirations and execution capabilities. Industry veterans are using Meghan's trajectory as an example of how celebrity status requires constant reinvention and genuine value creation to maintain relevance. When public figures rely primarily on controversy and grievance narratives rather than consistent professional achievement, the audience eventually moves on to more compelling stories. The Bloomberg disaster represents what media analysts call a revelation moment, when carefully constructed public personas collapse under scrutiny, revealing fundamental disconnects between image and reality. These moments typically mark permanent shifts in how industry professionals and audiences perceive public figures. For someone whose entire post-royal strategy depended on successfully transitioning from celebrity to serious entrepreneur and content creator, the Bloomberg interview exposed the failure of that transformation in ways that may be impossible to overcome. The contradictions and defensive responses revealed someone unprepared for the scrutiny that serious business leadership requires. The broader implications extend beyond individual career consequences. Meghan's struggles demonstrate how royal training, despite its limitations, provided valuable preparation for public scrutiny that becomes apparent only after leaving that structured environment. The contrast between her current difficulties and her former colleagues' continued success is becoming impossible to ignore. What happens next will depend on whether Meghan recognizes these professional realities and adjusts her approach accordingly, or continues pursuing strategies that have consistently failed to deliver sustainable results. The Bloomberg interview suggests she may not fully understand which path represents her best option moving forward. The palace sources who've been quietly observing this entire saga aren't celebrating her difficulties, but they're certainly noting how someone who positioned herself as constrained by royal protocols has struggled to achieve meaningful success, even with complete freedom to pursue her own vision. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply allowing reality to speak for itself. And after the Bloomberg disaster, reality is speaking louder than any palace statement ever could. What do you think? Has Meghan reached the point where even the most desperate producers won't risk their careers on her anymore? Drop your thoughts below. Type "finished" if you think this marks the end of her Hollywood ambitions, delusional if you believe she still doesn't understand what's happening, or "come back" if you think she can somehow recover from this catastrophic interview. And don't forget to subscribe, because the royal drama is far from over, and we'll be here to break down every shocking development as it happens.